May 17th, 1982. 8:20 p.m. base camp time. Chris Bonington stares at his radio in the darkness at 21,000 feet. Static crackles through the receiver. He's waiting for a signal that will never come. Two of Britain's most accomplished mountaineers have vanished into a whiteout at 27,500 feet on Mount Everest's northeast ridge, a route so treacherous, so unforgiving, that no human being has ever survived its complete traverse. Peter Boardman, 31 years old, methodical, careful. Joe Tasker, 34, bold, intuitive. Between them, they'd conquered 15 of the world's deadliest peaks. They'd survived everything the mountains could throw at them. Avalanches in the Himalayas that moved at 200 miles per hour. Frostbite at minus 40 degrees. Oxygen deprivation that kills brain cells by the millions. But the Northeast Ridge? This isn't just another climb. This is a knife edge of rock and ice suspended 5 miles above sea level, where hurricane-force winds scream at 200 kilometers per hour. Where exposed granite pinnacles rise through the clouds like tombstones marking the graves of those who dared before. At 3 p.m. that afternoon, Boardman's voice crackled through the radio. 8 words, just 8 words. "We're going for the second pinnacle, no bivouac." Those were the last words anyone would ever hear from them. To understand why 2 brilliant climbers walked into what their expedition leader would later call an obvious death trap, you need to understand the obsession. In 1982, Everest had been summited 129 times, but always by the same 2 routes. The Northeast Ridge remained unconquered, a white whale for the world's elite climbers. 3 Japanese teams had failed. 2 Polish expeditions turned back. The ridge's 3 massive rock towers, the pinnacles, demanded technical rock climbing at altitudes where the simple act of standing could trigger a stroke. Peter Boardman shouldn't have been here at all. He'd started as an English literature teacher, spending weekends scrambling up rain-soaked rocks in the Lake District. But in 1975, at just 25, he became the youngest Brit to summit Everest. His climbing partners called him pathologically careful, a man who checked his equipment 3 times before trusting it once. The mountain was mathematics to him, probability and calculation. Joe Tasker was carved from different stone, a theology dropout who'd learned to climb on the industrial chimneys of northern England, free-climbing brick towers without ropes because proper gear was a luxury he couldn't afford. By 1982, he'd established new routes on Dunagiri, Changabang, and K2, each one previously declared impossible. The mountain was jazz to him, improvisation and instinct. Together, they'd formed one of history's most formidable partnerships. In 1979, they'd climbed Gauri Shankar's West Ridge, 23,240 feet of vertical granite that had defeated 17 expeditions. They did it alpine style. No fixed ropes, no support teams, no bottled oxygen. Just 2 men, 40 pounds of gear each, racing against time through the death zone. Chris Bonington had specifically chosen them for the Northeast Ridge because of this philosophy. At 47, Bonington was already legendary. First British ascent of the Eiger, 4 successful Everest expeditions. But he knew this ridge would demand something beyond strength. It would demand intelligence, adaptability, and a willingness to move fast and light where others had tried to siege their way up with armies of support. March 15, 1982. The expedition begins. The team flies into Lhasa, Tibet, having paid $50,000 for their permit, a fortune in 1982. They have exactly 75 days before the monsoon makes climbing impossible. By May the 1st, Boardman and Tasker establish Camp 3 at 25,500 feet, directly below the first pinnacle. The temperature plummets to minus 38 Celsius each night. At this altitude, water boils at 76 degrees, too cool to properly cook food or melt enough snow for hydration. The human body begins consuming itself, burning 8,000 calories daily just to maintain basic functions. The Northeast Ridge's demands were specific and brutal. First pinnacle, 300 feet of near-vertical rock at 26,500 feet. Second pinnacle, 400 feet of exposed climbing at 27,200 feet. Third pinnacle, 200 feet of mixed rock and ice at 27,900 feet. Between each tower stretched narrow ridges no wider than a dining table, with 10,000-foot drops on either side. One teammate, Dick Renshaw, attempted the first pinnacle on May 3rd. His diary entry: rock-like stacked dinner plates. My axe bounced off granite like steel. At sea level, moderate. At 26,000 feet, like climbing while drowning. No. Dr. Charles Clark, the expedition's medical officer, documented their deterioration. Boardman, 18 pounds lost. Tasker's resting heart rate, from 52 to 115 beats per minute. Blood oxygen saturation, 71%. At sea level, anything below 90% means immediate hospitalization. But on May 15th, everything changed. The jet stream shifted north. Weather reports suggested a 5-day window. Winds below 80 kilometers per hour. Temperatures only -25 at summit level. 4 a.m., May 16th. Boardman and Tasker make their decision. All 3 pinnacles in a single push. No camps, no fixed ropes, no backup. They pack light: 2 sleeping bags, 1 stove, 4 gas canisters, 12 energy bars, 3 liters of water each. Total weight, 14 kilograms per person. The mathematics are terrifying. 48 hours of supplies maximum, 36 hours needed to reach the summit at optimal speed, leaving just 12 hours margin for error. Unknown to them, a low-pressure system is forming over the Bay of Bengal, 2,000 kilometers south. It will reach Everest in exactly 31 hours. 6:30 a.m., May 17th. Boardman and Tasker leave Camp 3 for the final time. Through binoculars, Bonington watches from advanced base camp, 2 black dots moving with mechanical precision up the fixed ropes. They climb unroped initially. This isn't recklessness, it's calculation. Ropes add weight, slow progress. At extreme altitude, speed equals survival. Every unnecessary minute above 26,000 feet increases cerebral edema risk by 3%. 11 a.m. They've conquered the first pinnacle. Bonington watches them traverse toward the second pinnacle, 400 feet of loose rock that has defeated everyone before. The second pinnacle's north face catches winds funneling through the North Col, creating wind chill that freezes exposed flesh in under 60 seconds. 3 p.m. Boardman's final transmission. We're going for the second pinnacle, no bivouac. The phrase means they'll climb continuously through darkness. Bonington asks about their condition. Silence. Weather observations? Nothing. Only static, electrical interference common at altitude where air itself becomes charged. 4 p.m. Base camp receives an urgent weather bulletin. The Bay of Bengal system has accelerated. Expected arrival, midnight. Wind speeds will exceed 200 kilometers per hour. Picture this: 2 exhausted men, blood oxygen at 71%, attempting technical rock climbing in gathering darkness at 27,200 feet, temperature dropping to -35, and racing toward them from the south, a wall of clouds at 65 kilometers per hour. 7:30 p.m. Through his telescope, Bonington spots 2 headlamp beams, tiny pinpricks near the second pinnacle's top. Still climbing, still alive, moving slower, but moving. 8:47 p.m. precisely. Both lights vanish simultaneously, not gradually, as if they'd moved behind rock, not one at a time, as if conserving batteries. Both gone, instantly, like someone threw a switch. Bonington stays at his telescope until dawn, searching. The storm hits at 11:30 p.m., turning Everest into what he describes as a nuclear explosion of snow and wind. Visibility, 0. Temperature at the second pinnacle with wind chill, -55 Celsius. For 13 years, their fate remained Everest's greatest mystery. Search expeditions found nothing but a single weathered ice axe at 27,100 feet. Theories proliferated: a 9,000-foot fall into the Rongbuk Glacier, death by exhaustion attempting the third pinnacle, an avalanche during the storm. May 27, 1995. Japanese climber Eizuke Shigekawa, at exactly 27,700 feet on a snow terrace below the third pinnacle, spots something dark against white snow. It's Peter Boardman, sitting upright in his red down suit, arms crossed over his ice axe, as if he'd simply sat down to rest. The extreme cold and altitude have mummified him perfectly. His Rolex Explorer 2 has stopped at 3:41. But here's what defies explanation. Boardman is 500 vertical feet above where they were last seen. He'd completed the second pinnacle in darkness and climbed most of the way to the third before dying. They had achieved the impossible: technical rock climbing at night above 27,000 feet without fixed ropes. Joe Tasker is never found. Boardman's camera, a Pentax K1000, contains 34 photographs. The final frame shows Tasker traversing a knife-edge ridge, the third pinnacle visible beyond. Timestamp suggests 4:00 p.m., May 17th. The theory: Tasker fell attempting the third pinnacle. Boardman, possibly suffering from severe altitude sickness, continued alone until he could go no further. The northeast ridge was finally conquered May 11, 1995, 13 years after Boardman and Tasker vanished. A Japanese team succeeded using supplementary oxygen, fixed ropes, and satellite weather forecasting, but they succeeded by following the exact route those two men had pioneered with their lives. Today, 89 expeditions have successfully climbed the northeast ridge. Every single one has used extensive fixed ropes, high-altitude porters, and supplementary oxygen. No one has ever repeated Boardman and Tasker's attempt at a pure alpine ascent. Chris Bonington, now 90, keeps their photo in his study. In 2019, he said, "They were 500 feet from completing the impossible, not from summiting Everest. That's been done hundreds of times, but from proving that the purest form of alpinism could work on the world's highest mountain." Their bodies remain on Everest, Boardman buried under 40 years of snow, Tasker somewhere in the vastness of the North Face, still together, in a way, still climbing